afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the SkillsFuture Festival at Smart Nation 2022 webinar series organized by SkillsFuture Singapore and Smart Nation Office. Today's webinar entitled A Peek into Singapore's Cybersecurity Landscape and Career Opportunities in the Cybersecurity Industry is organized in partnership with Netrust. I'm Phoebe and I'll be your host for this session. Today we'll be learning about the cybersecurity landscape threats and trends in Singapore and the technologies that can help mitigate these identified threats, followed by a Q&A to wrap up the session. During the webinar, please feel free to type in your questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. The speaker will then address them accordingly. Without further ado, let's welcome our three speakers from Netrust: Tay Yu Jie, Service Delivery Manager; Maureen Khoo, Product Manager; Eugene Lam, Deputy CEO. Speakers, please.
Thank you, Phoebe. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank everyone for taking your time out to attend this webinar. I am Yu Jie and I'm the Service Delivery Manager of Netrust. I lead a team of around 10 people to provide cybersecurity consultancy, services and technical support to organizations and government agencies. Together with me, I have Eugene Lam, the Deputy CEO of Netrust, and Maureen Khoo, our Product Manager. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can use the Q&A feature in Zoom itself to ask questions, and we'll try to address the questions accordingly. So as our Senior Minister of State for Communication and Information and Health said during a conference in 2021, Singapore's cyber landscape largely mirrors the global landscape. So any threats out there will spill over to Singapore. Singapore's cybersecurity threats are actually very closely connected to the cybersecurity threats globally. Like other countries around the world, Singapore also faces the rising threats of these attacks. Currently in Singapore, just hold on while I sort out some technical issues. Sorry about that. I think my PowerPoint crashed. Just hold on for a while I try to get back my slides.
While Yu Jie is trying to get back his slide, maybe I share a little bit about what we intend to share today. So Yu Jie is going to share a little bit more about the landscape, what are the cybersecurity opportunities out there in the market. Maureen is going to share a little bit about her journey as a mid-career switch, someone who mid-career switch from a non-IT security industry into a security industry, and I will share a little bit more about my perspective on as a hirer, what do I see in terms of the resume, in terms of the interviews, what are some of the tips that hopefully can be transferable if you are out there looking for a job.
Okay, I think I got back my slides, so sorry about that. Okay, so probably I'll move on to the next slide. So currently, Singapore is actually facing a massive shortage in technical skills, especially in cybersecurity. So Cybersecurity Agency estimates that up to 3,400 full-time cybersecurity professionals in Singapore are in demand, and almost 110% in comparison to 2018. As the industry is rapidly expanding, there has also been an increase in the variety of job opportunities for cybersecurity professionals. So our Singapore government is leading the way to increase the number of cybersecurity talents. CSA helms the Singapore Cyber Talent Initiative, which aims to reach out to a minimum of 20,000 individuals within the next 3 years to embark on and advance their journey in cybersecurity. The different initiatives include Cybersecurity Associates and Technologies Program, or CSAT program, which is a joint initiative with the Infocom Media Development Authority to train up and upskill fresh ICT professionals and mid-career professionals for cybersecurity job roles. Cybersecurity Career Mentoring Program, which is a joint initiative with Singapore Computer Society to provide a platform for students and professionals to receive career guidance and support from experienced cybersecurity mentors and industry experts. SG Cyber Women Initiative encourages more females from as young as pre-tertiary education age to join the cybersecurity profession. SG Cyber Educators Program targets principals, teachers, and school career counselors to provide them with opportunities for exposure to knowledge on cybersecurity and its career opportunities, and SG Cyber Youth Program reaches out to students from secondary to tertiary levels to provide them with opportunities to explore cybersecurity as a career and exposure to relevant technical knowledge and soft skills. So for mid-career switch to cybersecurity in a tech role, CSA Cybersecurity Development Program, or CSDP, allows professionals to undergo an 18-month development program to equip recent graduates with mid-career professionals with cybersecurity skills and knowledge. So if you wish to find out more about this program, right, you can go to CSA's website at www.csa.gov.sg. As for qualifications and certifications, as long as you hold a basic IT degree or diploma and understand the basic fundamentals of coding, you stand a chance to work in cybersecurity. So before you apply for your first cybersecurity role, you should actually take some time to develop core IT skills, which includes programming, network, and system administration, and cloud computing. While you don't necessarily need a degree to get a job in cybersecurity, having some form of structured training might accelerate your path towards a job. So it also doesn't matter if you're a fresh graduate, IT veteran, or mid-career professional from a different industry looking to switch to cybersecurity. There's a wide range of courses available on My SkillsFuture to kickstart your journey into cybersecurity, which includes advanced certificates, bridging programs, and even specialist diplomas. So the courses are actually eligible for SkillsFuture credit, which means that it becomes more affordable to learn more about cybersecurity. So for entry-level certifications, CompTIA Security Plus or ISC Square Certified in Cybersecurity are excellent certifications, as it covers pretty much all the basics of cybersecurity, including cyber threats and systems vulnerabilities, architecture and design, implementation, operations, and incidents response, governance, risk, and compliance. So the most common job for an entry-level fresh graduate is actually a cybersecurity analyst or engineer or specialist. So the precise job description for a cybersecurity analyst or engineer can vary, but will often include duties such as identifying and resolving security threats to safeguard information systems, defining access privileges to protect systems, implementing and maintaining security controls, performing penetration tests, and identifying security breaches and follow response protocols, assessing current security risks and implement improvements, conducting periodic audits to detect security violations and inefficiencies, and as well as preparing performance reports and communicate the results to stakeholders. So the job title can vary as well, depending on the specialization. Another common job for an entry-level graduate is a cybersecurity consultant. So the duties of a cybersecurity consultant includes assisting the project team in implementing, migrating, or upgrading systems, providing technical consultation and advice, assisting to validate or evaluate in the technical assessment and delivery of specific technical solutions to meet the technical requirements and specifications, engaging in technical problem solving across multiple technologies, and participating in project implementation and coordinate new installations, design, and migrations for technology solutions. So next, we'll take a look into the current cybersecurity landscape, threats and trends in Singapore, and the technologies and processes that can help to mitigate these identified threats. So actually, ransomware remains the top cybersecurity threat in Singapore. So for the uninitiated, right, ransomware is a form of malicious software that encrypts victims' files. It is often spread through phishing emails that contain malicious attachments, or when a user unknowingly visits an infected website and the malware is actually downloaded and installed without the user's knowledge. Then the attacker then demands a ransom from the victim to restore access to the data upon payment. So in recent years, there's a rise in a subscription-based model known as ransomware as a service, where ransomware developers lease out ready-made malware and infrastructure. So even attackers who are not well-versed in programming languages or lack other technical expertise can stage attacks. So this is leading to an increase in the number of ransomware incidents globally. According to a report from cybersecurity firm Sophos released in 2022, it shows that 65% of Singapore organizations surveyed were hit by ransomware in 2021, up from 25% in 2020. So a survey by Cyber Reason in 2022 has also found that companies in Singapore that are hit by a ransomware attack are actually paying an average of around 1.5 million Singapore dollars. And after paying the ransom, more than half of the survey respondents from Singapore said that their services were not released or were found to be corrupted. So to make things worse, right, 56% of the respondents were hit by a second time within 4 to 7 days after the first ransomware attack. So with the threat of ransomware always looming, right, organizations must always be prepared to protect against ransomware. So it's important to keep a backup of your company's data regularly to somewhere offsite. So if something goes wrong, you should be able to quickly and easily revert to a recent backup. This won't protect your company from being a target of an attack, but if you're ever attacked, the fallout won't be so bad. Yeah, so it is also important to check that the backup is successful and to test the restoration process regularly. So ransomware attackers may sometimes find an entry point within software by exploiting any vulnerabilities. So fortunately, some developers actively search for new vulnerabilities and patch them. Organizations should always scan all assets and vulnerabilities using enterprise vulnerability scanners and adopt a patch management strategy to ensure that all discovered vulnerabilities are patched in a timely manner based on the severity of the vulnerabilities. Multi-factor authentication forces users to verify their identities in multiple ways before they are granted access to a system. So if an employee's password is actually leaked out to a criminal, right, the attacker won't be able to gain easy access to the systems. Employees should also never have more access to data than they truly need. So organizations should always segment and restrict their access accordingly, as it can provide kind of like a quarantine effect, minimizing the impact of a potential attack and limiting the vectors of access. So most ransomware attacks are the byproduct of bad employee habits or pure ignorance. So with better employee training, the chances of this happening are much lower. So actually, I'll discuss more about improving employee training in the later slides. To prevent against ransomware, it's important to detect any potential threats. So this can be done by collecting and correlating data across multiple security layers in the organization to detect, triage, investigate, hunt, and respond to threats. So this approach is also known as extended detection and response, or XDR in short. Typically, ransomware must perform certain actions such as opening and encrypting large number of files. So protecting against ransomware that slips through the cracks requires specialized security solutions. So anti-ransomware solutions will monitor programs running on computers or softwares, servers for suspicious behavior, commonly exhibited by ransomware. So if these behaviors are actually detected, the program will actually stop any encryption before further damage is being done. So if your organization happens to be a victim of an unfortunate ransomware attack, you should never pay the ransom. So it may sound tempting to, pay money to get out of this bad situation as quickly as possible, but even after paying the ransom, there's no guarantee that the attacker will be true to their word and release the encryption keys. to the organization. So phishing is also one of the top threats in Singapore. For those who are new to cybersecurity, phishing is actually a social engineering technique where an attacker sends a malicious email or message to lure victims into revealing personal or corporate information. So phishing attacks are also a vessel of delivery for any malware or ransomware. So in most cases, a malware or ransomware attack just needs the victim to click on the link or download an email attachment. There are also different types of phishing attacks, so I'll cover them. Spear phishing, it targets a specific group or type of individual, such as a company's system administrator. Whaling typically targets CEO or CFO or any CXX within an industry or specific business. Smishing is an attack that uses text messaging or SMS to execute the attack. So the most recent type of smishing involves OCBC Bank, which affected around 790 customers and a total loss of 13.7 million Singapore dollars. So phishing attacks are actually accomplished through voice calls. Email phishing is the most common type of phishing and is most commonly used to target organizations. Search engine phishing is where hackers work to become the top hit on a search using a search engine. So in Singapore, around about 47,000 unique phishing URLs were observed in 2020. Of this, more than half of the organizations who were big technology or social networking firms and entities in the banking and financial sector. For the government sector, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Manpower, and Singapore Police Force remain the three most commonly spoofed Singapore government agencies. And many of these cases were phishing emails spoofing these government agencies. So actually during COVID-19, there was a surge in the phishing campaigns globally that leveraged pandemic-related kind of references and spoof relevant health authorities like the World Health Organization. So in Singapore, COVID-19 teams accounted to about 10% of these malicious URLs spoofing local organizations in 2020. So how do you protect against phishing? So on an organizational level, as phishers often use psychological tricks and social engineering to get users to click on links and open attachments, security awareness becomes a very important aspect of any organization as it educates the employees to recognize phishing attempts. So there are many security awareness training platforms in the market which combines automated phishing simulations with interactive cybersecurity education. So effective security awareness has also been proven to reduce phishing attacks from 40 to 60% to 10 to 18% after 3 to 6 months. So periodic security advisories via email to remind employees on security tips will also help to reinforce their mindset to be extra careful when they are clicking a link or opening an attachment. So actually in Netrust, we also do periodic security advisories. We do send out periodic security advisories to all our employees to remind them to be always careful when they are clicking a link or opening an attachment, because we don't want any phishing attacks to happen as well. Yep. So on the technological side of things, implementing a robust email gateway will also block malware and viruses from infecting business networks. So some email gateways have sandboxing features which add an extra layer of protection. And sandboxing has the ability to detect very recent malicious code by exposing its intentions in the computer sandbox. So email gateways actually typically can also spot and prevent sender spoofing, and as well as use domain name validation to identify and block phishing attacks. So the virus and malware protection will also remove emails with malicious URLs and attachments, which will stop emails with links to phishing websites from entering inboxes. Email gateways can also detect business email compromise or BEC attacks, which relies upon the ability to look like someone with power within a company or a trusted external third party. Secure web gateways will allow an organization to enforce their network security policies across all devices and monitors both incoming and outgoing internet traffic. It is able to reduce the risk of data breaches and data leaks that can occur due to malware or other web-based attacks. So I'll cover remote browser isolation, or RBI. So it is a web security solution designed to protect users from internet threats by rendering internet content in a sandbox environment and delivering only the final rendered page to the browser. So with RBI, users can open links in emails without needing to worry about phishing attacks, as all email links are opened in a secure, isolated server, which prevents users from downloading malware or ransomware, which originates from phishing email. So web defacement is also an attack on the website that changes the visual appearance of a website or web page. So hackers typically assess the website's hosting environment and make changes to important assets like the web directory, SQL databases, or WordPress admin account. So attackers may gain unauthorized access by exploiting security vulnerabilities using techniques such as SQL injections, brute force attacks, credentials leakage, cross-site scripting, malware insertion, and so on. So web defacement attacks are actually on a decline in Singapore. So 495 .sg websites were defaced in 2020, which was a 43% decrease from 2019. And the majority of victims were small and medium-sized enterprises. To protect against web defacement, besides the regular scanning of and patching of vulnerabilities and plugins, implementing HTTPS and enabling CAPTCHA, there's this thing called a Web Application Firewall, or WAF, which protects web applications from a variety of application layer attacks, such as cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and cookie poisoning. So how does Web Application Firewall works? It works by filtering, monitoring, and blocking any harmful HTTPS traffic traveling to the web application and prevents any unauthorized data from leaving the web app. So it actually does this by adhering to a set of policies that help determine what type of traffic is malicious and what type of traffic is safe. And the policies can be customized to meet the unique needs of each web application. So, recent advances in machine learning enable some WAF to actually update the policies automatically to address new and emerging vulnerabilities. So having a WAF can also help to prevent distributed denial of service, or known as DDoS, and is also able to monitor the web application for web defacement. So some web WAF deployment methods include cloud-based, virtual, or hardware deployments. So remote working has also become a highly popular and common practice around the world, especially now as companies allow a significant part of their employees to remain remote. So in Singapore, a tripartite statement in April 2022 from the Ministry of Manpower, the National Trades Union Congress, and the Singapore National Employers Federation encouraged employees to continue offering flexible work arrangements to employees, even though all workers can now return to their offices. However, while this practice increases flexibility, improves productivity, and enhances work-life balance, there's also a downside to it, which is actually remote work security risks. So threat actors were very quick to capitalize on this expanded and often vulnerable attack surface brought about by these new work-from-home ecosystems. So in this new remote working landscape created by the COVID-19 pandemic, cybersecurity became an even greater concern for businesses everywhere. So in a report published by software company VMware in 2021, about 8 in 10 public and private sectors organizations in Singapore has attributed such a working arrangement to a rise in attacks across the board. So this is comparable with the global figures across 40 markets. So nearly 7 in 10 public and private sector organizations said that the attacks were serious enough to report to regulators or to call in an incident response team. So why is remote working a security risk for organizations? This is because the cyber attack surface has been expanded to include living rooms, kitchens, home networks, and personal devices. So even though remote employees' work laptops are usually well secured, home Wi-Fi networks used to go online can pose a serious security risks. So updates to home router softwares are often overlooked, and many home networks do not have firewall installed. So these unsecured and unpatched networks can result in network security gaps. Furthermore, remote employees may store sensitive information on unsecured devices or share login credentials without considering the consequences. This might run into the risk of non-compliance with the Personal Data Protection Act. Remote workers are more vulnerable to phishing scams because remote workers may be less familiar with their colleagues. So as a result, they may be more inclined to do things that put them at risk, such as clicking on links in emails sent by imposters claiming to be their co-workers. So to address the risk associated with remote working, right, organizations should always strictly enforce all security policies related to access permissions. This means ensuring that only authorized users have access to the company's network and controlling who has permission to install software on their work devices. So organizations should also consider providing employees with VPN access to help keep their data safe while working remotely. So when connecting to servers through VPN, having multi-factor authentication makes it much harder for unauthorized users to gain access to systems, as an additional step is required. So employees should also be properly and continuously trained on the best practices for cybersecurity. So without direct supervision or centralized office environment, remote workers may not be aware of the latest data security protocols or the best practices for keeping sensitive information secure. So therefore, it is critical that organizations take appropriate steps to mitigate these risks by providing clear communication channels. So safety policy for protecting company information while working remotely should be clearly defined as well. So for example, employees should only be instructed to connect to known and trusted networks and should be warned against using public Wi-Fi or sharing company information over unsecured connections. Organizations need to make use of modern security tools that can monitor network activity and alert system admins in real time if there are any suspicious activities that are taking place, so that appropriate actions can be taken quickly, such as notifying users about suspicious activities and disabling affected devices. In addition, it is also crucial to develop a clear protocol for handling any data breaches. So to address the risk of sensitive information loss, it is important to have a clear data security strategy. So this involves discovering and classifying sensitive data in the organization. So after the classification of sensitive data, we can use data loss prevention or DLP solution to actually prevent the unauthorized sharing or exposure of sensitive data on channels like web, email, removable devices, printing, and more. So most DLP solutions will automatically block or quarantine sensitive data as it leaves the network. That being said, organizations should always be updated with cybersecurity news so that they can react to emerging threats and resolve or mitigate the risk accordingly. So a supply chain attack is a type of cybersecurity attack that targets a trusted third parties, a vendor who offers services or software vital to the supply chain. So software supply chain attacks will actually inject malicious code into an application in order to infect all users of an app. So software supply chains are particularly vulnerable because modern software is not written from scratch, but rather it involves many off-the-shelf components such as third-party APIs, open source code, and proprietary code from software vendors. So actually today, the average software project has around 203 dependencies. So if a popular app includes one compromised dependency, then every business that downloads from the vendor is compromised as well. So the number of victims can grow exponentially. I will briefly cover two very high-profile supply chain attacks that impacted not just in Singapore, but globally as well. So towards the end of 2020, the world actually witnessed an uncovering of a massive supply chain attack where hackers targeted victims through their trusted security vendor, which is US-based company called SolarWinds, a dominant industry player which provides computer network monitoring services to corporations and government agencies across the world. So hackers actually infiltrated SolarWinds' production network and implanted malicious code into software updates from this key network management software called Orion. So any organization that downloaded this malicious updates actually effectively gave the hackers a backdoor into its network. So the hackers were very patient and prioritized stealth to minimize the exposure of their operations. So once inside the victims' networks, the hackers actually look for ways to escalate their privileges and allowing them to abuse the authentication mechanisms. So they actually, they were observed to forge trusted tokens, which could grant them unrestricted access to the victims' networks, and as well as assets housed in the cloud, such as emails. So in this way, actually, the hackers could roam around the network freely, as if they were a trusted employee. So this made it extremely difficult to detect their presence within the network. So the impact was actually worsened by the fact that the network management platform was actually commonly used by a lot of corporations around the world and government agencies as well. Another one is Log4j. Log4j is actually an open source software that's provided by the Apache Software Foundation. It actually records events like errors and routine system operations and communicates diagnostic messages about them to system administrators and users. So in December 2021, a vulnerability in Log4j was discovered by abusing a feature that allows users to specify custom code for formatting a log message. So unfortunately, this kind of code can be used for more than formatting messages. It also allows third-party servers to submit software code that can perform all kinds of actions on the targeted computer. So this actually opens the door for malicious activities such as stealing sensitive information, taking control of the targeted system, and slipping malicious content to other users communicating with the affected servers. So one of the major concerns about this vulnerability is that Log4j is actually essentially on a wide range of programs, from games to software development tools to security tools as well. So actually this became a very urgent issue for all organizations due to the easy exploitation of this vulnerability. So the challenge with this vulnerability is not that administrators need to patch the vulnerability, but the IT folks cannot easily discover whether the product or system is affected by the vulnerability in the component itself. So up to today, there's still quite a number of unpatched servers in the public as well. So to try to better protect your organization against such supply chain attacks, you will need to have full visibility into your organization's network and IT infrastructure. So previously, I have mentioned that XDR solutions are able to achieve that as well. It is also helpful for security analysts to be able to review DNS, network, and host traffic for anomalies and perform investigations easily if there are any security incidents. So using this thing called Security Information and Event Management, or in short, SIEM, will actually help to easily search, analyze, and visualize machine-generated data. So organizations can also take a zero trust approach to cybersecurity. So this basically means that it is assumed that all network traffic is actually malicious by default, and access is only granted on a need-to-know least privilege basis defined by granular policies. So zero trust is a pretty huge topic, which I will not cover in detail during this webinar, but to put it broadly, building a zero trust approach kind of encompasses users, applications, and infrastructure as well. So with regards to zero trust infrastructure, zero trust network access, or in short ZTNA, allows secure access to internal applications for remote users by completely isolating the act of providing application access from network access, which reduces the risk to the network itself. So I'll touch a little bit more about career progression before I hand over my time to Maureen. So basically, during your first 3 years of your career, you should decide what kind of path you want to take for your mid-career. So during your mid-career, you should also decide whether you want to go for a more technical route or more managerial route. So there's no fixed career path in cybersecurity, as well as there are endless variety of permutations that can lead you to where you want. So that's why it's important for you to be exposed to all kinds of security technologies during your first 3 years, and always have the mentality that cybersecurity is ever evolving, and you have to, always learn new and emerging technologies to stay ahead as well. You should also try to take relevant cybersecurity qualifications or certifications as you progress in your career. So qualifications like masters in computer science or information science with a concentration in cybersecurity will be very helpful when you're aspiring to be a security leader. So you should also take professional certifications based on your career trajectory. But one certification which I recommend all mid-career cybersecurity professionals to take is the Certified Information Systems Security Professional, or CSSP, offered by ISC Squared. So now I'll actually hand over my time to my colleague, Maureen, who will share more about mid-career transition. So over to you, Maureen.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. So hi everyone, my name is Maureen. I am a product manager with Netrust. So earlier, Eugene shared about like the many tech roles available in the cybersecurity industry. So my time today, I'm here to let you know that there are actually also a lot of tech-like opportunities within the cybersecurity space. So I myself, I joined the company in the beginning of this year. So prior to this, I was actually never in a role or even in an industry that was related to tech. So for my part today, right, I would like to share with you my personal journey of how I actually made the mid-career switch and got here. So hopefully the sharing of my experiences will be useful to you if you're also looking to switch over from a non-tech background. So my own background, I was from the arts and social science back in school many moons ago. So after graduation, right, I joined actually a travel company, and I would say the travel company formed the bulk of my career before I joined Netrust. So I had experiences with like inbound, outbound, B2B, B2C, leisure, and corporate travel and events. I was very involved in pre-training planning, pre-arrival travel planning, and also like contract negotiations. So it actually trained me to become like very meticulous about details. And I was often the liaison person, and I had to manage like the communications between the clients, the different suppliers, and also like, you know, on-site staff, like the ground staff, our ground coordinators, and even like, you know, the tour guides. So I was also responsible for like correct billing. So again, you'd have to be very particular about things like reconciling invoices and contract entitlements. So that said, right, I myself, I wasn't always in the travel industry. There was a period when I got rather tired, right? Because while travel industry was fun, right, it was also heavy work. So hours along, I left the industry and got a job as a product manager for consumer durables. So specifically musical keyboards. So I wasn't a musician by any chance, and I didn't play any instruments really. So it was quite a learning curve at the beginning, trying to learn about my products. So, but being a product manager there exposed me to many different responsibilities. I had to learn, you know, suddenly like purchase and inventory control. I have to develop pricing and marketing strategies. I have to manage the distribution of different product lines through a network of dealers and direct retail stores and so on. So then aside from this more regular type of work, there was also the everything else. So basically you're talking like random stuff, you know, that didn't have a department to land on or no budget, then it will fall on my plate. So things like producing concerts, I chaperone my performing artists around. I have to do crowd control, and then I also have to like design custom door gifts for events. So you're doing a lot of random stuff. So, but eventually I did return to the travel industry. But then a few years later, while COVID happened, so many of us had to leave the industry. I was very lucky that I wasn't thrown into any sort of like immediate financial crisis, but it was also starting to be clear at that time that, you know, this COVID is going to be a long drawn affair. The economy was down, and then it felt very futile to try and find another job in an industry that was getting decimated by the pandemic. So around that time, or actually even slightly before that, there was a lot of buzz about, you know, like upskilling, and then the government was also saying also dishing out a lot of support dollars and initiatives, especially to, you know, try and encourage people to move to the tech industry. So I myself, I hold the popular, I would say the popular sentiment that, you know, many jobs now may cease to exist in another decade or so. Then while many new jobs that do not yet exist now will be created. So I decided at that time, like instead of desperately trying to find something and settle for an interim job to ride out the pandemic, why not just like make use of my unemployed days to utilize the SkillsFuture credit and see if I can make a mid-career switch into tech, and then, you know, hopefully job-proof myself into the so-called fourth industrial revolution. So next slide, please. Then, so I understand myself enough, right, to know that I have no aptitude or interest in coding. I've tried picking it up several times and also gave up every time. So I reckon my brain just isn't configured to work that way. I think if you feel like me, you understand what it is. So I knew that if I wanted to switch, it would have to be a tech-light role. So I was attending a lot of like free online introductory workshops and then reading about the different kinds of tech-light roles. So like one day I was like browsing this SkillsFuture site, and then I came across a mid-career pathway training program, I think it's called. Yeah, and it was conducted by IBM to do with data science. So, you know, like, oh, data is like the trend word at that time. So I did actually often find myself having to handle spreadsheets of data, doing data cleaning and whatnot when I was working. And I thought like, you know, pretty okay in maths when in school, and I'm quite anal about details. So I thought, like, why not give it a try? Then the 6 months course was heavily subsidized, and they also provided a monthly allowance. So I decided to give it a go. But then what did I learn from the IBM course? I learned that, you know, data science was not my cup of tea, like haha. So sidetrack a bit. This is my personal opinion. It's not just maths. You need to be a bit comfortable with statistical concepts if you want to pursue data science. So anyway, back to my story. The IBM course wasn't like a deep dive boot camp kind of training program, but it aims to give like a fundamental understanding of the topics. So I learned enough to know that data science wasn't going to be something that I will enjoy doing. So despite its high employability, plus to be a good data scientist or analyst, it is inevitable that you have to learn some coding. And if you missed it earlier, I'll repeat, I don't like coding. So so that this meme right on the screen here is perfectly encapsulates my attempts to learn. But what I did find myself enjoying though in the IBM course was this module on design thinking. So prior to the IBM course, I didn't even know that there was such a thing. IBM has their own version of design thinking methodologies, but I believe like the underlying principles are the same. You want to like always keep the users in the focus. You want to empathize with them, pinpoint their pain points, then you ideate, conduct user testing, and then you iterate to improve the outcomes. So it's actually not just for digital products, but applies to everything. So to me, it was very refreshing, and I often find myself lamenting, right, why no user testing was done when I encounter some crappy products. So I will elaborate on that. But so then after the IBM course, I did like more research and thought like, okay, being a product manager in the tech industry could be more suitable for me. It also involves design thinking, although not full on like a UX designer. And I felt like it has a longer pathway to grow. So remember, I was a product manager before, and I recall what I liked about the role then was like the diversity of tasks. So I don't like to do repetitive process-driven kind of work. And I also enjoyed like at that time being able to manage my product. So you're like this mini CEO within the company, you initiate and take ownership of the things that I wanted to do. So while I was like sending applications to various companies for my job hunt, I was also attending a lot of like public webinars, just like this one, which talk about transitioning into the tech industry. And then one of the public webinar, in one of them actually it was by SG Tech. So I found out there was a newly launched CCP, so it's called a Career Conversion Program. Previously, I think it was called PCP, a Professional Conversion Program, something along that line. So now CCP, so that they have a new track for product manager. So it's under the Workforce Singapore, and it was actually different from the IBM course in that it operates under a place and train model. So it required me to get hired by an employer first, and then the employer and the government will co-sponsor me for a career conversion course run by a separate training institution. So it was through this program that I got hired by Netrust. So for the course component of the CCP, I am required to attend live classes on some days of the week, complete like e-training, e-learning on my own, weekly assignments, and also a capstone project where I had to work on optimizing an actual digital product from my company. So all the learners were also attached to a mentor each, who are industry practitioners themselves. So as in like they're actual product managers from various companies. So each of us would meet our respective mentors weekly, and then they will also be able to like provide us with a one-to-one coaching and advice, be it about our coursework or work in our new companies. So that was, I would say, definitely very helpful to have someone outside of class and work to consult with, because you know in class you learn a lot of things like theory, right? They'll say, you know, things should be like this or should be like that, but reality is usually messier, and every company is different. So the mentors help to provide some advice on how to sort of like map these two, and then they also share their own experiences. Next slide, please. So I've learned a lot during the course, but I would like to highlight like 3 key takeaways from the product manager course. So in case some of you are interested, you have a slight idea what it is about. So I learned to like, we learned like, you know, keeping users as the focus. So instead of say like deciding a product roadmap by arbitrarily pushing features that a company wants to release and then trying to find a market for it, we should like prioritize development based on what the market or the users need to ensure product market fits, which actually leads me to my second point, where in order to do that, we need to understand our users and how to collect their feedback. So basically to conduct user research. So this includes more than just doing surveys and interviewing users, because sometimes when you ask people for feedback directly, people don't know what to say, or they cannot articulate what their pain points are. So it's important you conduct like user testing to observe how they interact with the product, and like where they get lost within the product, what they are saying, and also like reading in between the lines of what they have said. So and then the third point is about this whole emergence of product-led growth for digital products, in addition to the traditional sales or marketing-led growth, where sales teams or marketing efforts are the drivers for generating revenue. So what is this product-led growth, right? Basically, it's a business strategy that relies on the product itself, its features or the performance as the primary driver of customer acquisitions, conversions, and retentions. So like we do this by focusing on the product experience, so then really the job is to help our users succeed with the product and succeed fast. So we want to help them realize value from our product and what's called user activation as soon as possible. So once they activate, we want to continually engage them to build customer loyalty. So how this includes tactics like you optimize the UX, UI, as well as the entire customer journey. So to put it simply, right, we want to create product lovers, so who become not only loyal customers but product advocates. So we create this sort of loop where the product sells itself. So that is essentially what product-led growth is. So right now, I'm thinking what I've learned from the course. I'm trying to apply them back to my work in Netrust. So previously, my company's core business activities mostly dealt with like back end, so there wasn't that much interaction with users. But however, recently we have this some products where we now have to interact with users. With that, it means like we have the opportunity to directly engage with them now and get their feedback to guide our product development and growth strategies. So as the product manager, one of my responsibilities is to advocate for the users, and that's what I'm trying to do. There's a lot of fundamentals, obviously, to get in place and tools to implement and learn. But well, one step at a time. I'm also figuring out as I go, but it's been rather stimulating. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. For a non-tech person like me, trying to transit into a tech role is not easy. There are definitely challenges. For the CCP, earlier I said I have to complete this course component, which concluded recently. So I must say that it was pretty intense. I had to like juggle classes with assignments. I had to do this capstone project in the background, and then also the OJT component of it, and all of this in a very new environment. So even though I was a product manager before, being one in the tech industry is quite different. So one of the biggest differences would be that a product manager in the tech industry, you would have to be involved in the development of an evolving product. So in my previous life as a product manager, I was in charge of physical goods. So those were like completed products, and I just had to find ways to sell them as is. So product development decisions at that time were made at the HQ overseas, and as the product manager for one of the small markets like Singapore, right, I had very little influence, plus any inputs will only be considered for like the next generation of the model, because these are tangible products with hardware. They don't make a new release every 3 months or 6 months. It's like 3 years or 4 years, you get one version. So whereas for a product manager in tech, right, you have to, because you have to learn about design thinking, UX, UI, product road mapping, and so on. So you would have to identify ways to continually improve the product for the users. There are plenty to learn, and I would say actually often not enough RAM in my brain. So I would say it definitely helped to go through the course with a class of like mid-career people like myself, so you could like support each other and keep each other sane. So that's what I thought about the class. So anyway, during my CCP course, we also covered like plenty, like a lot of frameworks, models, methodologies, and whatnot. So I remember feeling very overwhelmed by them. Plus, it was hard to internalize what they really mean when you just study about them in theory, but may not have the chance to experience them in practice. Then I also found like my working life suddenly inundated with like technical lingo that I've never heard of. So I was like used to communicating. I mean, from my previous career, previous jobs, I was just communicating with people from like varying backgrounds. I can have been like the very hands-on people on the ground, like the AV crew, or even like warehouse assistants, to like management level people who makes business decisions. So my interactions with tech people at that time really was just like my IT department, and basically limited only to times when my laptop was cranky, or I had like access issues to some online resources. So, but now I have to like communicate with developers who are actually one of my coders now. And sometimes I feel like I still find them to like speaking a little like a different language. I actually have this, I remember this incident where one of them took notes of our discussion as an else if statement. So this was like yeah. So if you know coding, you probably know what I'm talking about. So anyway, most of my classmates, so my last point, right, most of my classmates in the CCP course are with SMEs like myself. So I feel like it seems like no SMEs rather than MNCs are more inclined to take in mid-career switches. But I want to put out a disclaimer. This is just based on my own anecdotal observations. The big data may show something different. So in any case, being with an SME now also meant that I had to take on a lot of other tasks outside the standard responsibility of a product manager. So unlike when you work for MNC with more resources and manpower, the responsibilities are more focused and dedicated because you are usually paid account by account from the client. So now I have to spend time, right? Whereas right now I have to spend time to like figure out how to do something. But I mean, I will admit there are some tasks that are sometimes just beyond what I can manage. So I will reach out to my colleagues or boss for help. So what's good about this, I guess, is you learn to be more resourceful, and then you also become a bit of a jack of all trades, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So next slide, please. About transferable skills and perspectives. So, okay, so the first point, so built up from my years in the travel industry and also a product manager where I had marketing duties that time. I would say I'm very detail oriented. So usually materials that would be external facing would be checked by various team members and then passed to me for the final bet before production. So I would be the one crossing the T's and dotting the I's, or check the grammar, check the spelling and stuff. Then I'm also very sensitive to things like irregular margins and spaces. If you're an OCD like me, you understand. So to me, it's about protecting the brand image. So this, shall I say, feature of mine, I'm also putting to good use, I hope, in my current role, as I also have marketing duties and I have to manage the contents for the products under my care. Second point, language skills. So as an arts student, I would say I had opportunities to write papers more than some others. So then later in my work, I was also involved in contract negotiations where I had to review and negotiate clauses with suppliers. And then I have to edit them for clarity before they get signed off by the clients. So I would say the language skills I've honed over the years are also useful now as I help to review service policies and create content for my products. Then the third point about communication. So I've always had to do a lot of liaison work with different parties. So it trained me to understand nuances. So as a product manager in tech, you also need to be good in communicating with different groups like your users, the developers, and also the management, because really your job is to balance the needs between the UX, tech, and the business. And then finally, my perspective as someone who did not come from this industry is also something that I think is useful to at least some of my colleagues, because I'm able to offer an untainted view of how I see or experience things without assumptions. I would just provide feedback without bias or any sort of pre-knowledge, if there's even such a word. So since I have no background in tech, it's also easier for me to explain things to be understood by customers who may be a layman themselves. Okay, next slide, please. So I would like to conclude my section with some personal advice, basically what I learned from my own journey. So I would say really join open events or webinars like this to learn about the kind of roles and opportunities in the industry you wish to join. Because seriously, you don't know what you don't know. So there are literally jobs out there that I didn't even know existed before. So you wouldn't be able to, search for something that you don't know exists. Yeah, and the second point is to really leverage also on government resources and initiatives to make the switch. There may also be initiatives by non-government bodies as well. So my point is, right, because when you don't come from the industry, you likely will not have many or any friends or connections from that circle. It's hard to get recommendations into the industry. So I understand, there can be so many initiatives and materials online by the different entities, so it gets confusing, but try and sift through them anyway. So the third point being, I'll take up courses, even if they may only cover the fundamentals. So there are plenty of like one-day courses, even, some of them are free. Like sometimes you find out things about yourself through these courses, like how I took out a data science course and confirmed that I don't like data science. So then also the point I wrote on the slides, like whatever you take away also can make you sound cooler at parties, So and then the fourth is really also about the mindset. So you want to be open to learn from anyone, especially in the tech industry where many of the people or your colleagues, right, are likely younger than yourself if you are a mid-career folk like me. And that's all I have for today. I hope my sharing is of use to you, or at least offer some comfort if you are considering a mid-career switch. So, and then for the last section, I'll hand over to Eugene, who will share his perspective as a hiring manager. Thank you.
Hi, Maureen. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Eugene. I'm currently the Deputy CEO of Netrust. We are IMDA accredited certification authority in Singapore. So I've shared earlier, I'm here to share a little bit about the company's perspective on hiring for the role and how we support mid-career switchers. But before I do that, I want to share a little bit about Netrust first, because I guess it will be good for us to be on the same page, because if we know Singapore's landscape, about 280,000 SMBs are in Singapore, which accounts to about 70% of employment. So Netrust is one of such SMBs, and we are about 40 people strong in terms of our staff strength. Netrust, despite the presenters today, we are not a startup. So we have been around for about 25 years, and we have offices in Singapore and in Philippines. We are also the first public certification authority in Asia. And although we cater mainly for the ASEAN market, our certificates are also found in global footprints such as Microsoft and Adobe. When my boss employed me many, many years ago, he told me this that I will forever remember. He told me that Netrust is a small company, but we have a large global footprint. So I sort of understood it across the years on what it actually means. Okay. So enough about Netrust. I want to take some time to share what is the job scope on what we hired. In Maureen's role, we were looking for a product manager. So we knew that we needed someone with skill sets that are not groomed within the company. Like myself and many of us, we started our journey in Netrust as an engineer. So when we look at a problem, our natural instinct is really to fix the problem rather than to find out what caused the problem. We make the thing work first. So that was why sort of this role was being created. So what you see on the screen now is actually extracted directly from the job description that we posted. I thought it would be good to share some perspective of why it's needed. Because Netrust is a SME and this is the first time we hired such a role, we also pivoted some of the tasks according to the needs of the business. So the first thing I really want to share is the scope of identification. So what this role does is actually, it helps the company identify what customer needs instead of just fixing the problem, because it's not a true technical role in nature. So the role, the product manager helps us identify what the customer needs and define what are the new features that needs to be improved, and really focus on the user journey instead of focusing on fixing problems. So it works out the long-term strategy of the product. With the problem statements, like what are the new features that the customer wants, we also work out with the internal stakeholders, with the developers, so that we can prioritize the workloads and assign long-term roadmaps for the products. So one of the interesting questions that Maureen brought up when we did some of the reviews was, how do we guide or how do we convert a testing customer to a paying customer? So these are things that we never thought about, because for us, when we deploy or we create a product, our objective is to make the product work. we never think about the user experience, or how can we slowly encourage them to consume services and make their experience better. So this is one of the plus point that I thought was quite cool from a deputy CEO's perspective. Sorry, I think the slide is gone. Do you want me to share instead? The slide is gone, right? Okay. Then I'll share my screen. Give me a second. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen, right? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay. Another task is also to create and maintain collaterals that are part of the job or the products. So for Maureen's case, I think there's a lot of meetings that we have together where she used her English language, her proficiency in English language, and she sort of commented on the language and sort of guided us through the materials. The last one is for us to measure and assess the efficiency of the product roadmaps. So as part of my task, because I was the one that proposed for this role, I have to be accountable to the management team as well on why is there a need for such a role and how does it either reduce cost for the business or get more customers so that we earn more money and there's sustainability in this. Okay. I would like to share next on what are some tips, and this is all my personal experience, right? So what are some tips or what are some things that I look for when we place the role and we want to hire new people? The first thing that actually comes across on my table is actually the resume. So when I look at the resume, these are some things that are sort of importance to me. The term of employment is really quite, I won't say it's the number one priority, but it's a very high priority for me because the technical crunch in the cybersecurity industry is very, very real. So Netrust doesn't want to be seen like it's a training school as well, because it takes a long time for us to get someone operational in terms of the cybersecurity space. And because we are highly niche in what we do, there is a high priority that the candidate demonstrates the ability to stay in a company for long. So there's something that I really value. Relevant experience. If the person is here for a more senior role, then this becomes more mandatory. If the role is a junior role, then this might be placed on a lower priority. So we do hire fresh grads as well. We do hire mid-career switchers, and we will have mentors or we have people to help guide them and help them be operational in the roles. Education is also important for me, not just the highest qualification of education, because usually I don't attend the first level interview. The first level interview is done by a hiring manager. So sometimes I'm not the hiring manager, I have a hiring manager. So by the time the resume reaches me, and I guess this will be a double-edged sword, if a resume reaches my desk and he has cleared the hiring manager, but he doesn't have a degree qualification, for example, then actually I view it as a plus point. That means there must be something that he or she has done that actually allows he or she to impress the hiring manager enough to push him to the next level. So highest qualification, I guess, is a double-edged sword. But something I value more is continuous learning. Whatever I've learned in the university might not be relevant now. So that's something that I value, the ability to Google for information, the ability for you to continually take new courses, new certification in the latest technology becomes something that I look for in a candidate's resume. And the last one, I thought is something that is quite cool to share. This is not something that most people will put, but where the resume come from becomes very important as well. So did the source of resume come from a recommendation from internal? Was the source of even if there is not internal, we use headhunters as well. So we put a little bit of trust on the headhunter that there is a screening done by the headhunter. So did the person blind apply from our LinkedIn? Like, was it apply from our website? So the source of resume actually scores a little bit of point in terms of how do we rank the candidate even before the actual interview. I'll spend some time to talk about the actual interview itself. Okay. So in the actual interview, these are some things that I really, really look out for. The first one is really attitude and does the candidate look relaxed and does the candidate smile? Because in Netrust, our culture is very, I guess we are very relaxed as a company. We are a small company, so we are not a big company. There is, although the hierarchy is quite flat, so that's why I'm the one that is doing this presentation now. So and the ability to continue this culture is really, really very important for me as a hirer, because we want to make sure that everybody performs in an environment that really allows them to be themselves and it's not and laughs and able to the job can be quite stressful at sometimes, because the systems that we support can be nationwide, which can be quite stressful if a system goes down. So the ability for us to laugh together and handle tough situations together becomes important. Okay. Communication. Usually I'll try to ask the candidate to share something that the candidate is passionate about, because I believe that product knowledge can be picked up, but if the person cannot share something that he or she is passionate about, then I will be a little bit worried. So usually, in my experience, when I ask them to share something that they are passionate about, and if they are comfortable in the interview, their face actually lights up, which is quite cool. So they will light up, and then they'll start to talk a lot. You know, it's not work related at all, but I would like to see that, you know, the candidate's side of them. Okay. References. Am I able to get a third-party reference from someone that's not listed? I mean, I'll be a little bit real. If someone is willing to put a reference in the CV, then probably the person is going to get good reviews from that person. So, because that's how it's being designed. But if I am able to get a third-party reference from someone that I trust, be it an ex-employer, and I know the ex-employer, then that will be something that that will be helpful in determining whether the job to be offered a job or not. And the last one, which I thought was one of the more important ones, was does the candidate have any questions? So this is something that I won't say is ethics within a interview, but it's something that when I was younger, this is something that was taught in my school. When you go out for interview, always ask a question. So interview is really a two-way street. The candidate is interviewing us as much as we are interviewing the candidate. So if the candidate does, even if I find someone extremely good, if the person does not have questions, then I'm a little bit worried, because I'm worried that if I offer out the letter of offer, then the candidate will reject the offer, because it is a two-way street, right? So if the candidate does not ask the questions, then maybe the candidate is not very interested in the role. So it might not be applicable if during the interview the person the candidate asks questions and interacts well with the panel. So I guess that's something that for people to take note. Okay. I have no more other points. These are the things that I sort of want to share as a perspective of a person who does the interview and what we look out for in the candidates that we interview. I want to reiterate some of the stuff that is being shared by my colleagues, Yu Jie and Maureen. For Yu Jie, his original presentation, the first presentation deals with the roles, more of the technical roles in the cybersecurity space. That's something that I resonate well with, because I was born as an engineer before being a management in the current role. So there is career progression within the cybersecurity space, be it a pure technical track or become a management, where I don't do coding today, so I do more management of P&L and stuff like that, more business related stuff. But it is still fun for me to do coding, and I still do enjoy it. For Maureen, I think she's one of the a very good example for us as a company that mid-career switchers can value add to businesses. So I do encourage any bosses that are here to also consider hiring mid-career switchers. You won't know what the value that they will bring to your organization. Okay. there is a question which I will answer live. I'm not sure whether cybersecurity is a good fit for me. How do I go about deciding? Should I take a online course? Okay. This is a very good question on cybersecurity. There is a very big misconception on cybersecurity. If you notice what Eugene has shared, a lot of the cybersecurity knowledge out there deals with hacking. So a lot of the knowledge that we know about cybersecurity deals with what Hollywood tells us. So but I really want to encourage you guys that not everybody is a hacker. So in our organization, most of our technical staff are, for lack of a better word, they are defenders. So they are out there deploying technologies to prevent people from compromising systems. So there is a vast amount of jobs out there that deals with defending or implementing of technical solutions. You can see whether, to be honest, that's not like super exciting per se compared to the Hollywood movies, but that is the one that actually fit the bills. That is a very stable job and that is a booming industry. So that is something that I would encourage the person who asked this question to start to see whether is this a path that he or she should take. Yeah. Okay. There's another question. How many of your staff is technical, development versus training program towards certification, prepping for career switch? So Netrust is an SME. We have, I think, more than about 50% of our staff is a engineer or engineering background. A lot of our management staff, I don't know, surprisingly or not surprisingly, are technical people as well. So we sort of, because we are SME, we double up as the technical headcount for escalations and stuff like that. We do work with, for example, I'm personally mentoring a few Ngee Ann Poly first year students. So we have regular sessions with them to sort of, I think it's a two-way street. I try to understand what the poly grads are going through in terms, because I wouldn't know what the poly grads are going through. So I try to understand what the poly grads are going through, and they try to get real world working experience from me, where I will, if there are webinars, I will forward it to them, and I arrange a few of my buddies in the industry to also talk to them to share about, like, for example, the latest one that we are going to do will be incident response. So in the event that there is a compromise, what actually happened. So he will share his perspective because he's the person who does incident response. So we are working towards development of pipeline. I will call this talent pipeline. So we're working towards that. But to be honest, in the SME space, it is quite challenging because nobody wants to, I won't say nobody wants to work for an SME, but there's a stigma of SME that do everything. But I highly, highly encourage you guys that this is the place to also, train and develop your core competency and skill sets. Okay. Someone asked, does Netrust offer a place and train program under the current CCP listing? Not for the current product manager, but potentially we can do for other roles. I will highly encourage you guys, if you have if you find one and you need corporate sponsorship for us to take a look, then write it to human.resource. Correct, Eugene? Human.resource, right?
Human.resource@netrust.net. Yeah. Yes.
Human.resource@netrust.net. Or go to our public page, our website, then fill in the contact form. If it's something that makes sense for us as a company, we will definitely explore it. Okay. We have another question. What advice would you give a 50-year-old PMET to get into the subject matter expert, like you say, from UTS background? Okay, so however, I'm an electrical engineering trade and previous banker. So like Maureen, what I will say is to go into a tech light role first before transiting into a tech heavy role. And this is just my personal opinion. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but having one foot into the industry definitely helps in terms of placement into the IT security sector is very small in the Singapore space, because it is still a very young industry. So most of the people who start in the industry knows each other. Also, so you can look into if there's transferable skills like project management, for example. That's something that you can consider, or go through a CCP program like what Maureen has done. And then it's best to write in directly to a company who supports the initiative. And I guess that will be the best way to step into cybersecurity as an industry. Of course, the courses like what you just say, like CISSP, definitely will help getting through the screening of the HR. But knowing the people, knowing the hiring managers. Now, for today's case, actually, a lot of people are willing to connect. So it really requires you to have an updated LinkedIn profile and just reach out to the people within the company and build a relationship, build a friendship with the person and see how you can take this forward. Okay. Is there any other questions? If not, I think I've answered all the questions already. Oh, Yu Jie, you want to take this live? I saw.
Yeah, so I saw there's this question from an applicant who is software engineer that's more than 15 years on different industry. How relevant is it for us to move into cybersecurity? Do we need to start from ground zero? So I would say, as long as you have technical knowledge, it does not matter which industry you're in. So you can always go and try for mid-career conversion courses, or you can always, go and take up certifications to try to improve your employability. So this is what I would suggest. I mean, everyone will have to. I mean, starting from ground zero, it is because if you are coming from a different kind of like background, probably you need to start from somewhere also. So always try to take up courses and make sure that you keep yourself updated with the cybersecurity trends and news. Yeah, so this is what I would advise. Yeah.
So like, I think to add on to what you just say, right? I think the courses are there. There are many courses out there that helps conversion into cybersecurity space. There are many roles out there as well. The roles might not be tech-heavy roles like part of UTS team, but there are many supporting roles that really helps break into the cybersecurity sector. Because as an industry, the cybersecurity industry is really booming. So maybe if there, I guess there's two paths to this. One is really to go deep into the certifications and the necessary qualifications to be a technical person within the cybersecurity space. There is another one where there was a tech-like approach where you break into the cybersecurity sector first, then navigate within the cybersecurity sector. Internally, we have hired a few mid-career switchers from the army. So they were regulars, which eventually move over to cybersecurity, but most of them has took a part-time degree on cybersecurity space before entering the cybersecurity space. If we were to consider them for tech-like role like project management, then cybersecurity degree will not be as relevant as maybe a PMP, for example. Yeah. I think the timing is just about there as well. I have stopped share. I think the timing is about there. I'll hand the time back to Phoebe.
Yes, okay, thank you, speakers. So we hope that you have taken away some pointers and insights from this webinar. So if you need guidance on your tech upskilling journey, you can sign up for the free one-to-one skills and training advisory session with SSG Skills Ambassadors. So they'll have a conversation with you to understand your needs and objectives. It could be a new skill you're looking for to enhance your employment prospects or for your career transition plans, and share with you the relevant information. So this includes like course search and recommendations, types of assistance schemes and fundings, SkillsFuture credit, and other resources on my SkillsFuture portal. So how can you contact a Skills Ambassador? So there's 3 ways to do so. Visit us at any of the locations indicated on the map. Please note the operation days and time. So they'll provide you with a suitable course recommendation based on your career goals. Simply scan the QR code or click the link in chat to register, and they'll reach out to you within 3 to 4 working days. So we have come to the end of our session. We would appreciate if you can take a minute to fill out our feedback form by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in chat. Once again, thank you for coming to join us in our webinar. Do check out the upcoming webinars on our SkillsFuture Festival website. Goodbye.